You guys ready?
I'll call this meeting to order. Thank you. We would like to recognize band and chorus, music in the parks.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about it. Tell us about the experience.
So we left really early, went down to Westfield High School and performed. The band competed against, I want to say it was 8 other schools, and the chorus against 6 other schools that day. We had 2 adjudicators for each ensemble, and they've been working on songs either from January or from March timeframe until the beginning of May. And some of the songs we played at the spring concert, and some we did not. But we went down, we competed, and they judged us on a lot of our intonation and rhythm, knowing the scores and the pieces. And then we went to the park, and after the rest of the ensembles were done, they tallied up all the scores. And then the high school band came in first place, and high school chorus came in second.
Wow. Great. You guys.
We had some numbers, others are sporting it up right now. Jobs.
Recognize enough North Country. We're here.
We were the only New Hampshire school that day.
Oh.
There was a number from Rhode Island and some from Pennsylvania, one from New York. So it was a variety.
Are they all around the same size ensembles?
No, we are the smallest.
Okay.
That's
That's okay.
It's not funny, it's true. Okay. But there was, I think, one of the bands, it looked like they had about 60 kids.
Oh, wow.
So we had, I want to say about 30 of our high school band members go down. And out of our chorus, we had between 10 to 15 go down. So that was half in numbers, but.
You still pulled it off. This is quality.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Yep.
And the next team is the Granite State Challenge, led by Charles Denny.
Hello, yes. Yeah, sure. I've got 3, Aiden, Jenna, and you can hold this.
Jenny's working from section to section.
You're coming from the camera.
Yeah.
Come on, you were already on TV.
I know.
I know, this should be nothing.
Yeah, I took these, I put together a team pretty last minute, but got 6, 7 people interested. We were allowed to have a team of 6. We had 7 so that we would have some space just in case kids couldn't make it. They did awesome. We met weekly for a while. We filmed this all in January, early February. So the hardest part has been keeping our mouths shut for a few months. So, yeah.
Great.
What was the next hardest part, though? Did you guys find things that you were really challenged on?
I think the fact that we were able to beat Hanover, they were seed number 1. We were seed number 14. They're a nationally ranked Quiz Bowl team, and we came up and we beat them. And
We found the right set of
showed up.
people.
Yeah, we were the only, yeah, for sure. And we're the only team north of the Notch.
Great.
Nice.
I'm sure you've seen it.
Yes. Oh,
So-
I watched it. It was fun. It was
Yep.
fun to
Yeah,
watch.
it was fun to watch.
Well done, thank you.
Yeah,
Congratulations, did good.
Thank you.
So are you nationally ranked now? You beat
Yeah, exactly.
So we could have definitely, we qualified by winning Granite State Challenge, but we didn't, we could have gone to Washington DC and moved on to do some things. Unfortunately, money wasn't there, so we couldn't. Hopefully next year, maybe we can put some more aside for the team, because I highly believe the team's gonna do just as well next year.
All right, great.
And hopefully for the next 4 years to come.
Or maybe they'll be on Jeopardy. They'll be on Jeopardy.
Exactly, that's the hope, right?
Well, thank you for coming.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay, any public input? Right, next thing on the agenda is approval of the May 6th school board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any errors, corrections, or omissions? Good. Yeah. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The manifests are right beside of me, I've seen them. Anything else from the business department? Okay. Lead testing update.
I just received an email 1 minute ago saying that we do still have some areas above the accepted level. I haven't looked at the 4 pages yet to see which ones, but he's forwarding it to the state for their recommendation for the areas, and I can't tell you right this second how many.
Okay.
Something to look forward to.
Right. And Lakeway roof, are we going to discuss that in non-public? Next item I have on the agenda is a summer board meeting schedule, which I sent out to board members, and I just need to make sure on which dates you approve of. Our last meeting for the fiscal year of 18-19 is June 17th. I don't know what anybody's summer vacation plans are. We have a meeting on July 1st, and a meeting on whatever it is in the calendar. So my suggestion was to keep the meeting on July 1st and don't meet again until August 5th, or change the July 1st meeting to July 15th. We change it to July 15th, that gives us 4 weeks between now and the last of June and 3 weeks before August. So what's your pleasure?
So if you change to July, when will we still meet on August 15th? Is that what I'm trying to
No.
follow you there?
We will still meet on the regular dates in August.
Okay, but change the 1st to the 15th of July?
If that's what you want, unless you'd like to take the whole month off.
Oh, did someone ask me?
I'm good with the first one.
July 1st.
Doesn't matter to me.
What's that?
I'm good with July 1st.
No, I'm fine with the first one, the 15th.
Okay. I- Are you on vacation
Which one?
down here?
The first part.
Are you on vacation?
First part.
Really?
What? July, yeah, I don't care. I don't care. I'm fine. I don't leave my house in the summer.
All right, let's go with July 15th.
July 15th, all right. Thank you, Lucy. July 15th. July 15th.
Okay, a community service report. Connie?
That's gone. Yes. Yeah, are we doing the 15th? Yeah. Okay. Sorry,
I
Connie.
think all of you got the report.
Thank
Yep.
you.
It was
Yes,
sent to
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Just some highlights on it that, this year, that I have been really impressed with the middle school. They've really accumulated some hours of community service, which I thought was really neat. One of the other things is the senior class. I had put down and told them up from grade 7 through 12 at 5,525 hours. So they really, did a great job with that. One of the things I changed this year, we always have the announcements. I have my big board, which I think you saw up there, that I always put up there. But I was concerned that maybe they weren't always getting the announcements in the morning. So now what I do is I email all the kids, the classes, it depends on the community services. If I think the middle school kids are, like they love to work down the Lakeway, I'll email the 7th and 8th graders, and they get the email individually with contact information. So that I'm not the middleman, they get what the community service is, who to contact, number, and an email. And I think that's worked good. I think that's what's helped a little bit with that. Yeah, some of the other ones, though, that I think mostly maybe freshmen and juniors, I'll contact them. Most of the seniors, quite honestly, by that time have gotten most of the community service, they're working. Sometimes it's tough to get the seniors, although the seniors do the big things like the penguin plunge and some of those, they always like to be involved in. I do have one student who is a senior, who has, I just talked to him today, has done it, but I haven't gotten a sheet to record it. But he said that he'd done it, so, and I know he has, he just, because I don't, see, I have a spreadsheet, and until I get that piece of paper with the hours from where they did it, I don't record it.
Right.
So, you know, that's what happens there. Some of the activities I did write down, I did put everything down in these pages and
I
pages of it.
know, I saw that.
Yes, yes, I cut back a little bit, it was just getting, you know. One of the things this year, I think we worked a lot with the Wilton Parks and Rec, with Chris Wilkins, we did a lot with him. Elementary school, senior center, I'm always working down there with those guys. Library's another one. Boys and Girls Club are the ones that we see a lot of. Retirement activities. I said the mobile pack and penguin punch is really big. The kids love doing that with Mrs. Sandra. They love doing that one. So Brian told me to put this out. There have been over 135,000 hours of community service from our graduating seniors from 2001. Those are his figures. You know, yes. So,
well, then
I think it's been extracted. And then the other thing for some of the 7th and 8th graders, they get involved a lot with Wilton Polo Pals or the library. They love doing that. The Dinner Bell, Walks the State is some of the ones that they do. Little Leopards is another one. So I think most of it is the town activities, our elementary. Every once in a while, we do get a call from couples, elderly couples who need help with either shoveling or raking and things like that. Or usually get a senior boy to help out with that. With our National Honor Society, of course, we did the Veterans Day all together, the Thanksgiving and the Christmas meals that they do, and mobile pack and penguin plunge, which they're really involved in. I also mentioned here, through the chamber with Joe DePalma, who got Student of the Year. He is awarded a $1,000 scholarship from the Eames family, which he will receive at the end of the year. Good recommendation letters. I do recommendation letters for all the seniors. They go up to the guidance office and they use those for the scholarships. And I also hold on to those spreadsheets. Very seldom, every once in a while, there's a student that might call me and say, I graduated 6 years ago, do you have my community service hours? So I do hold on to those on the spreadsheet, no longer. We used to hold on to all the paperwork, it's just too much on that. Then I guess in closing, one of the things I put down, is I think it's important, the support of our principal and our school board, superintendent, Mr. Smith, about that. But on the whole, most of the kids are very excited about doing the community service. I always get a few that fight me, but most of the time it's a really good thing. And I think they learn how important it is.
Yeah,
Thanks, Colin.
thanks,
Good
Coach.
questions?
Thank you.
Terrific, thank you so much. Look at all this good news we're getting from all these students tonight.
Next thing I have on the agenda is the interactive boards.
Do we want to discuss
Okay.
in public or not in public, because it would involve
Yes.
the vendors?
I guess.
I mean, I can say a few things
Okay.
regarding that. I know Steve has shared some photos with you, so you can see we purchased an interactive flat panel for Lakeway that's movable for classrooms when they're Promethean failed this year. We have light images on the new technology, as well as on what most of our classrooms, all except for that one, is currently using. So you can make a judgment for yourself as to what is appropriate for our kids to be learning on or not. And I think we're all in agreement that we need to do something. So I think the discussion tonight was just going to be to try to pick a vendor and then also funding of that vendor.
Okay. All right. So Steve is the next one.
Yeah, the grant that Al Rochelle wrote for the bike project, I realized since it's not a formula grant, non-competitive formula grant coming through, pass-through grant through the DOE, it does need to be noticed as in a hearing. So we're gonna need to put that as a grant hearing for the next board meeting and then
A public hearing.
just like we did with the last grant over $5,000 that we had. So my mistake, we could have done that tonight if we would notice, if I'd have made sure it's noticed correctly, but I didn't.
Well, I got some questions on that grant there.
Feel free to talk about the grant, we'll need to revisit a lot of this next time too, but go ahead, Ralph.
$45,000 to establish a bike program with the CTC for 1 year. What happens at the end of that year with that program? Does it go away? It's talking about getting all these toolboxes and all this equipment, all this stuff coming in for $45,800. But at the next year, if we don't approve funding for that, it goes away. Or how's it gonna get paid for in the future? That's my question. How is that CTC program gonna get paid for in the future, and what's it gonna replace?
I think I'll know, I tell you what I know about it, I know Al knows more, but because I know there's always questions about that when you have grants and software and what have you. The tools remain ours, we purchase them out of the grants, they don't go anywhere. We can use those for other purposes, or we continue the program. The bikes themselves, we'd have to make some decisions about whether we choose to try to sell them, whether we program, in some cases, they put them together and dismantle them. It would be, in fact, to be reused if we wish not to sell them. The cost, so there's about $30,000 to $40,000 or so. The cost of the instructor is the thing that would remain. If you kept the bikes and you didn't have to buy new tools, assuming that and most of the other materials were materials you could use year to
Yeah,
year.
well, looking at the grant, there was a number of stuff, including the bikes. I mean, it gives you 11 bikes to build. But if you build them the first year, what are you gonna do? Tear them apart every year and rebuild them every year?
Maybe.
Still 11 bikes?
I don't know, maybe we may have to do that. I'll let Al and I talked about some of this today.
Well, it's in my report, but I can talk about it now. The plan is hopefully for this program to continue. We need to develop relationships with a variety of vendors. Right now, the bikes that you purchase are kind of a lower end bike. Talking to people involved, I'd like to see a much more higher end bike. Maybe we develop a relationship with a bike shop or a ski hill, some sort of business that would build the bikes for them. So it wouldn't be a cost. We're planning right now to offer one block. Right now I have a number of students that are interested from other schools. The tuition itself would cover the cost of the instructor. So I really think it could be an area that we could create some resources in terms of funds from tuition.
Yeah, get what, a couple students you
Couple
paid
students
that.
pays for the fee. And if it, I've always said we need to make decisions. I don't think we're going to expand the CTC program to offer programs that are offered throughout the entire day. I'm hoping that this leads into some other programs such as the manufacturing program, pre-engineering program. So students are interested in that program as well. If it really does well, maybe president instructor may do the bike program as well and not teach something else. Enrollment's going to drive a lot of those decisions. So we have people in the CTC are going through some cross training. So it could be an existing staff member a year from now that picks up that program and runs with it if we have
I have a couple of questions. Does this replace a CTC program?
No.
Replace what, Ann? I didn't get that, I'm sorry. Does it replace a current CTC
No.
program? And what about the space availability?
We're gonna be using the space where the machines are, the POS machines, manufacturing space.
Okay,
We really cleaned that space out. It used to be the woodworking shop.
yeah.
We shifted everything down, so that space would work well.
I think it's laid out pretty well, and I'm just pleased that you're working on something without a motor or electronic. It's something that kids can take and use, and maybe after school actually ride a bike, you know.
The things that we could do, there are a number of grants out there. There's quite a bit of money for trail systems for mountain bikes. And certainly there are a lot of avenues that a student can go with this. They could go right into the bike repair business if they wanted to. But also, hopefully this excites students around STEM activities and again, pursue other STEM courses that we offer. And I guess it's not designed to replace a program right now, but maybe it does down the road. You know, if this is a really strong program and another program isn't quite as strong, then we would make that shift.
I didn't read all of it out, but there are other schools out there doing this?
The closest school is Lindenville.
Okay,
We went
yeah.
to visit Lindenville, and they have a very nice partnership with Campbell Trails, and that's what we have to do. We have to develop partnerships with the trail system and businesses that we're already doing now. And again, it may lead to other kind of interesting, that community service project. The bike, I'm sure it's in the report, maybe a bike rodeo last weekend. How nice would it be for this program to do some of the work on our youth's bikes in town? So at the time of the rodeo, those bikes are repaired and ready to roll and safe for our kids. There are a lot of grants out there that promote having every young person in the community owning a bike. You know, something down the road, if we ever gotten involved with that, they would provide us with the bikes that we would build for the youth in Littleton. So there's a lot of direction we can go with this.
Do you know how long the certification course is for an instructor?
Well, there is training involved,
Yeah.
and that's, I think, a week-long training. Certainly, someone with a little bit of a background coming in would be helpful, but certainly that a person without that background can receive some of that training.
I saw one of our student hands go up. Did he have a question, Austin?
Yes, back when we started talking about the grant in the first place, I was wondering, is this grant a recurring thing, or does it end at the end of the year? Is it something that we're likely to be granted again, or is it something we'll have to reapply for?
This is something that we would be talking
Yeah, and as a board member, my concern is any new program that comes into the school, under grants, they have to be self-sufficient on the second year, or else they're costing the taxpayers money, and we shouldn't be taking in grants that are going to cost the taxpayers money year after year.
So
So
I understand that.
that's my concern.
No question.
Okay.
Alan, I didn't see in here, maybe you said it, but what grades are eligible to do this?
Really focusing on high school right now.
Okay. I just know you mentioned that hopefully it feeds interest in other STEM programs. I just didn't know if you were only offering it to seniors. Well, it's kind of late to feed the STEM program at that point, but, so high school, so anywhere from freshman all the way through senior.
And for, out of district students, they have to be a 10th grader to receive that reimbursement.
Okay. Thank you.
Even if for a year, I see a lot of good coming out of it for a year. I get, well, concerned, there's a lot of people, but darn.
Well, money's going to be a big concern with the budget's coming up. The next few years, it's going to be a huge, huge concern.
It rises every year.
It's gonna get bigger. Pencils are gonna get really tightened up, so if it's not self-sufficient by the end of the second year, it's not gonna do this school any good.
Okay, Kelly, you're on.
So our enrollment has stayed pretty much the same. I have a couple students to add that had just recently re-enrolled, not re-enrolled, just recently enrolled, even though it's this late in the school year. But you can see from where we were in August, we're up 20 identified students. So, staffing, you'll have nominations for extended school year.
Can I ask you a question? Why are you up so high from August of 128 to May of 147, up almost 20 people? Why, are these new kids coming in, or are these
Some of them
kids
are
in
kids that
school
have
being
moved in from
recoded?
other districts. Some of them are students that are in district that have been referred for special education in Paul.
The bulk are students who are kindergarten and first grade, who were new to us, and then we identify concerns and over time decide some evaluation.
They're not new kids coming into the system then?
Sometimes that's not.
Okay.
Sometimes not, I think.
So that would,
Right, so
that would mean that our population in the school has increased at least 20 people. And I don't see that happening. It looks like
Well,
we're
some
going
of them
down.
may have been already enrolled in school but not receiving special education because they hadn't been referred to special education. So there've been referrals for students that were already here and they now qualify for special ed. So the overall population may not have increased.
Is there a certification process that goes through that, and
There's
who
very-
certifies these kids got to be special education?
Well, there's very strict criteria that they have to meet in order to.
By
be identified.
state regulation,
Federal
federal?
and state regulations, and then there's a team that determines whether or not they meet that criteria.
Okay.
So, summer school nominations, you'll get those tonight, and we're following the same model that we followed the last few years, where we have a regular ed and a special ed combined co-teaching. That has worked out really well. So you'll get those, and I listed the summer school dates. And then the memo that I included this time was for the distribution of the excess IDEA grant funds. So that was at $10 million that's been redistributed. And we're getting about 40,000, just over 40,000. So once they give us our allocations for this year, I think they're going to be in line or add into that. So that's all I have. Share any questions?
Is this like a summer school for special education? Is this something you do every year?
Yeah, it's required by law.
So why are you using those additional funds? Shouldn't that be coming out of the budget?
It is.
You just said we're going to use that additional funds we found from,
No, that's something totally separate. That was a different topic. So the memo that I included has to do with the additional funds that we'll be receiving, but that's not to pay for summer school.
okay, so the $40,000 that we're going to get additional from special education has nothing to do with what you got down on here.
It has nothing to do with summer school.
Okay, we don't know yet where that's being expended.
Right, I haven't written activities for that.
Okay, all right. Because you said it was, the ESY was going to be that additional IDA money, but it's not. This is something you do out of the budget.
Yeah, no, I didn't say, I didn't say that. I just said I attached that memo for the distribution of excess funds.
Okay.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly. Jen?
So you should have my board report in there as well. So Above the Notch has completed its first year. The graduation is set for the 30th. It'll be at 6 p.m. 17 students will be graduating. Some of the general business you've probably already addressed. The Graded State Challenge Team second the state. Our grade school cleanup was a great effort. Lowe's Heroes and A&P Landscaping supported the physical cleanup. And Abbey Group, Littleton Food Co-op, and Shaw supported Mr. Brown in preparing the food to prepare for the luncheon that follows.
We finished our prom safely. The kids had a great time. They looked fabulous. Again, the music in the parks, you know, the first and second place award. I've attached the middle school and the high school programs of study for you. And our students have begun selecting courses for next year. Our goal is, we haven't met it in the past, but before they leave, everybody knows their rosters and students know their courses. On May 23rd, New Hampshire will honor their New Hampshire scholars. So we have 25 students. About 55% of our graduating class has met the criteria of New Hampshire scholars. It's an increase of 18% from last year. Tomorrow we're going to the North Country Scholars Breakfast at White Mountain Regional to honor our valedictorian, salutatorian, and CTCs of the year. Our valedictorian is Nicole Pyatt, and our salutatorian is Joe DePalma IV.
The academic awards night was really good. I thought it went well, and I was amazed at how many kids out of that senior class are in the National Honor Society. I don't keep track every year, but it seems a lot this year.
It was a lot.
Good coverage.
Yeah, that's great.
We've just finished our state assessments for 7th and 8th grade and science for 11th grade. Those results will be coming soon. We did the AP test. We had 20 students take 6 different assessments for AP. We don't offer that many courses, but they do some of those online. So the courses are listed there: Spanish, English, psychology, U.S. history, calculus, and art history. So I'm looking forward to those results as well. Beginning next year, we're going to be introducing a middle school scholars learning path. And I've outlined the criteria: GPA of 3.0 or higher. There's state assessment scores of proficient or better on the math or ELA reading assessment. Grade level teacher team recommendation, positive classroom behaviors will also be one of the criteria we look at. We have letters we'll be sending to the families for the students that meet the criteria to participate in this learning path. Letters for students who may not have been recommended due to the criteria, but certainly families can look at that as being a possibility. And we've also, knowing that some of the challenges we face, we are going to be integrating a small group, project-based, competency-based learning opportunity for some of our struggling learners.
So, Jen, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What will that do? What will that learning path? What's the goal?
The goal is to feed the path for our New Hampshire scholars.
Okay.
But in essence, it's leveling our high achievers into a section to be challenged by curriculum pace that's appropriate for them.
Jen has
Thank you.
a letter she wrote that she'll leave with you later that I think it's really important. This is a fairly significant step.
It-
And the board needs to be very aware of what it is we're doing.
And I've got
Understand and support.
three letters for each of those, the recommended, the maybe not recommended, but they do meet some of the criteria. And if you wish as a family, we can continue those conversations, possibilities, and then a letter for some of the, for that group of challenges. But you can certainly, these are drafts, but they will be sent out soon. Right. Oh, with the administrator survey feedback, do you want hard copies of that so you can see it, or is it easy to read on the computer? Who prefers a hard copy?
I like that. File, I already printed it.
What else?
It was actually, feedback's important for everybody to reflect and consider possibilities. Partway through the year, it was evident that people may have been questioning how things are going at the high school with some of the changes we have gone through. So after talking to Dr. Niles, I was like, we can certainly get the teacher's perspective, because it may have been things said, like teachers don't feel safe, they don't feel supported. In the survey, in fact, you know, was actually very affirmative. You know, it was very positive. Typically, surveys, when you start looking at education, a 70% return rate is really good. Most in-house surveys, you get a 40%, 50% return rate. Greg's survey received a 91% return rate.
I did, but I
Oh,
love
I
that one.
put the website, sorry, guys, I have to link to it. And mine was well over 80. So that was nice. Our teachers were very, responded to feedback. We did surveys of the people that we supervise. The questions we pulled from validated surveys used by different organizations to get feedback on principals and assistant principals. And we also added some that we knew would help us better establish goals as we move forward. I mean, the vast majority on Greg's survey indicated, and we use the same language, 1, 2, 3, 4, strongly disagree, strongly agree. We noted 3s and 4s are proficient, 1s and 2s we need to work on, so we categorized and chunked it that way. Do you want to talk about any of that? Same with mine. You'll see that some have stars. Some people we evaluate are not teachers. Therefore, we wanted to make sure that they weren't given questions that they couldn't respond to because it didn't apply to their position. You'll see a red on mine. That is the one area that one teacher indicated I was a 1 in. Is open to new ideas that improve the school, no matter who suggests that. So of the 37 people that responded, 1 gave me 1, 3, a 2, and the rest were 3s and 4s. But with all that data, we sat down and created goals for ourselves. Greg and I collaborated on assistant principal goals and principal goals for next year. We've already shared the results with the staff. We've reviewed the goals with them and received some feedback. I don't know if you want me to go through the goals or not, but they're there. Improve communication with teachers after discipline referrals, kind of wrap back around. Continue to find ways to promote positive behavior versus managing behavior. That's a challenge, lifelong challenge in administration. Continue to extend presence in different spaces, especially spaces where we may not be directly supervising. One of my goals is, and our goals, is to ensure teachers and staff are comfortable approaching and communicating freely with me, to improve the focus and focused conversation with the leadership team and staff on curriculum development, instruction, and assessment. I do a lot of this already, but certainly do more of it moving forward. Does anybody have any questions about that survey results?
Do you think some of the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask, because you said that like midway through the year, you were starting to hear some things. Do you think now that things have kind of settled down with CDE and SEL and people are finding
I
a
was
rhythm?
hearing something from Steve based on
Right.
board feedback. So that's, I wasn't hearing it in-house.
Okay.
We were hearing very positives in-house.
Do you think though that the fact that everyone's getting more comfortable with these initiatives is helping with that?
Yeah, change is always
Right.
going to be shaky for people. We went through a tremendous amount of change this year. And to have such positive feedback was really quite surprising because of all the change.
Right.
And the change questioned current practices, teachers' current practices, so it makes many people feel very uncomfortable.
Right.
But yeah, it was reaffirming.
But my question is, a goal to me would be to increase your state test by 10%. That's a goal.
The goals we set are
But-
based on the survey, so this
Okay,
is about
but
climate
that's
culture.
not, my question is, these goals, as I read these should be in your job description.
They are.
There shouldn't be any question about establishing them as a goal. They're your job description, that's what you should be doing on a regular basis.
And we are. It's
Then
just-
why do you have to establish them as a goal? If that's your
When we
regular
looked
job?
when we looked at the survey results, you're looking at maybe 4 people showing that concern. When we looked at the questions we asked and the comments we received back about the climate, really this is a climate and culture.
And I wasn't here for whatever established this or started this.
No, and the goals you're talking about are separate than these. These are the goals and the focus we're gonna be working on with the teachers when it comes to climate and culture.
Well,
Certainly
to
test
me, it wouldn't say, these are my goals, it would say, oh, I'm now gonna do my job, because it's in my job description.
We have been doing our
I think
job.
the
It doesn't
survey,
sound like it by
I think the
this.
survey data shows that the job's being done. I think that our goal is to continually improve that working relationship with our staff, who doesn't necessarily evaluate us. However, they're asking for support or asking for improvement in certain areas. So our goal is to work well with the staff in order to improve us as
But
a whole.
in your job, wouldn't you know that these things are happening anyway? Why would you have to do a survey to say, tell me what I'm not doing?
I think everybody has a perception of what's going on.
Yep.
And self-reflection is always really
Yeah.
good, self-evaluation is really good, so I think it's great that this was done. And I think that the areas of improvement that they found or their goals is in response to that particular question and to those things that somebody has said, oh, you know what, maybe I don't feel so confident with doing this. So they're putting it in writing that this is what they're gonna work on to help these 2 or 3 or 5 people feel better and feel more comfortable in
Okay,
it.
how's
how I
this
take
gonna
it.
be evaluated? You're setting these goals, how's this gonna be evaluated?
Doing another survey.
Isn't that kind of a waste of time?
You know.
You've got your job
let me-
description, if you do your job, you
Ralph,
wouldn't have issues like this.
When community members might question the culture and climate in our schools,
Oh, they do question it.
this is what you need to be able to show as evidence that, you know what, things are going pretty good. Things are going well in our school when it comes to staffing and
And you really think the
leadership.
community believes that? You said the community perception.
The overwhelming majority.
Was the
does
community
believe it.
perception that you weren't doing your job? Was that the community perception, and now all of a sudden you gotta do a survey to prove the community that you're doing your job? I don't get this. I don't get, to me, that's a waste, that is so much waste of time because you're supposed to be doing it anyway.
Time out.
It's your
No, I wanna
job.
move on to the-
This is a huge waste of
Us
time.
doing the survey and analyzing the data and moving forward is what we had to do. to-
Okay, go ahead.
Ralph, I think, and again, when there's question as to climate of the building, as there's been questions about people's, Jennifer's reaching out, including people, and it's questionable whether that's happening, and that's been something that frankly has been around for a while. The first time we did a survey of this 2 years ago, right after she started, and that survey came back very, very strong. The consultant group that did it said it was one of the strongest survey results you ever saw. Now we're into our second year when this world is turning upside down right in front of our very eyes. We're asking people to do more and more and more and more and more. And this only validates the earlier data that I collected back fall when I asked people about UDL, CBE, SEL in terms of how it's being implemented, the support they had. And what we heard was, yeah, we're tired, we're stressed out, we're worn out, we're frustrated, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough support, we don't have enough, but we're getting it done, we're gonna get it done, and we know it needs to happen. That I think some of Jennifer's work validates, but we can't have it both ways. We can't say, prove it, give us information, give us evidence that things are getting better, and not be able to then question when we actually produce the evidence.
It's
So I
If you're gonna put this out in the report right now-
I would strongly counter your labeling this as a waste of time, because this is what we do. We try to reach out to our stakeholders, we try to reach out to specifically the ones within the buildings, and make sure that,
They're doing their job.
This is not new,
make sure that
There's all
we're,
the time in the corporate world.
So aside from,
Yeah,
aside from
If I wasn't
the
doing my job in the corporate world, I'd get fired.
it takes
No,
a
you
lot,
have-
it takes
you
a
have
lot
human
of,
resource
no.
department.
but Ralph,
Yeah, I get
it
fired.
takes a lot of courage to reach out to those whom you work with every day and their supervisor and ask anonymously what they think of you or your performance. This doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes this is forced upon schools and principals to do. This doesn't happen all the time. Jennifer did it. I didn't order her to do it, she did it. And what a novel idea. Let's hear from a student.
So I had a question for Mr. Ralph. Would you rather the administration never check to see how they're doing and then just keep doing a bad job if they are?
No. Don't you get an annual evaluation?
I do.
Doesn't that annual evaluation tell you where you need to make improvements?
Yes, and
Then make them. Why do you have to set goals to make improvements?
the goals I set here are goals to help improve the school culture, but go ahead.
Which is your job, to
Yes,
improve and protect
exactly.
school culture.
And the culture is alive and healthy right now, and here's the evidence of it.
So the evaluation comes from a supervisor who has a unique perspective on things. Other than the kids, the most important people in the building are who? Those would be teachers. And it's pretty darn important to make sure that those teachers are getting out of us what they need. It's very important. And I think for Mrs. Carbone to take and have the courage to do so, it's pretty important. One comment in the survey somebody made, they feel that all our administrators and boards should do an annual survey. It would be interesting to see what they think of the board's performance.
Except we don't-
That's fine. I appreciate your comment, but we're your boss, okay? The board's your boss.
Sure.
That's something you gotta remember, okay? You're not gonna evaluate your boss. We're
I'm
gonna
not asking
evaluate you and
to
make sure you're
evaluate
doing your job. That's where your evaluations come in, and in your evaluations, it'll tell you what you need to make improvements on. You evaluate your teachers, you tell them what they need to make improvements on. To sit down and do a survey and to come up with these goals and concentrate on these goals instead of concentrating on the kids, that makes no sense to me at all. I'm sorry, that makes no sense to me at all. It's a waste of time.
Jen, how long did it take?
To do the survey, to look at the data, to share the data out, hours.
For something that wasn't needed.
But a lot of
Well, you
times.
say
It should have been done
But
in
it
the
goes
first
far
place.
for the staff.
When you, go ahead.
It goes far for your staff. They recognize we're hearing them, they recognize, even any business is gonna do that. Any business is
Yeah,
gonna do
they're
that.
gonna sit down on an annual evaluation, tell you what your issues are.
No, we've done this.
Okay?
All right.
Your board, your CEO, your board will determine
Uh,
how things are supposed to run, but the teachers have to do their jobs, the principals have to do them, the superintendent has to do them, and it should be in your job description, and you should be doing your job description every single
And
day,
we are,
100%.
you're doing that every
100%.
day.
Point of order.
And
Yes.
when you have an evaluation and your supervisor says, this is what I want to see from you, part of that is setting goals. You have to set goals to achieve these things. If Steve sat down with Jen and said, listen, this is what's out there, this is what we're hearing, we're not hearing that there's strong support for some of these things going on. I need you to find out what's going on and how you're gonna address it. So my understanding of this is that there was a conversation, there was a, suggestion to find out what we need to do to fix this, and this is part of
Okay.
that. That's how I'm understanding it.
All right.
That this is part of addressing those things.
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
continue.
Well, I appreciate it.
I think, I'd have to look back at 2 years ago when we did that. Have you looked at that since?
This was,
When we had it done?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's okay. They're trying to do a good job.
the teachers think we are doing a good job.
Well, then there you go. You're their boss.
Grant update, you wanna?
Sure, I'll go. So, guess I'll stand. I'll try to read it through my two glasses, okay? So the grant I'm working on right now is with the town of Littleton Police Department. It's a kind of a unique grant. It's coming out of Cox.com, so it's a Cox grant. The deal is, it's called the School Violence Prevention Program Grant, which means that Littleton Police Department has to write the grant. It has to be submitted through Littleton Police Department, right? The school district are the recipients of this grant. So, we have met, Greg, we work with the school safety committee, so the fire department, the police chief, we all came together to come out with the needs. This grant is 90% done. It's due May 31st. I am waiting for some final quotes. So there's some big ticketed items in this grant. You could apply for up to $500,000. We are applying for $185,000. This will cover a 2-year training session for the Littleton Police Department to be in our buildings. This is being written for Littleton School District, and I included in the grant SAU 84 office, because there are some safety concerns over there that the police chief has issue with, and he wants to be able to upgrade. So this is a partnership. I was hired to do partnerships with your community to come up with the best grants that we could to benefit our students that are going to give us what we need. This grant goes for $100,000, is going to cover a new access, point of access door system. So we're going to look at Dale, because I just write them, so. All right, so that is going to cover Littleton High School, parts of Littleton Elementary School, Littleton Academy, and the SAU office for those doors. And this grant also is $20,000 for lighting for anywhere in the campuses. One of the concerns is above the notches, entrances. I need a lighting system that's going to work effectively and efficiently. So that's there. Film for the windows, we put $25,000 there. For the film to stop a bullet from outside the windows going in. There's a metal detector, portable metal detector that can be used anywhere in the community. So that's in there. And then the other piece is 2 years of training for Littleton Police Department, which means that all the officers will be inside these buildings to understand where they are. Like they come in for a quick tour with Mr. Babin, and then they can't remember how to get from the front door to a CTE door, or how to get through the maze, or how to get to things in this building. They need to know in a quick second where things are. But it also covered Littleton Academy, it covered the SAU office, and it covers the elementary school. So it's money that's going to flow through the Littleton Police Department, but they don't get to spend it. We had a whole list of everything that we couldn't purchase, and all the money gets upgrades for Littleton School District. So it's a huge grant. It took a lot of training and hours and time to understand. We had to go back through and file a needs assistance under grants.gov. So we had to do all of those forms with Littleton PD in order to qualify before you can even look at the grant, read it and tear it apart and do it. So that's taken some time, challenging for me, but I'm 90% there and it will be submitted on time. I'm just waiting for 2 more quotes to come in that I have to have. And then I also did the adult high school. You can only get a 3% raise when it's in the middle of the RFPs. All RFPs for adult ed are 3 years. We came in the middle of that cycle, so we got the 3%, so that's $10,300 moving forward into the next school year. That new RFP will come out in January of next year, and based on the numbers that we have currently enrollments-wise, we will be looking at an increase with the state for that. So that's the other grant. I'm also looking at some grant upgrades for SEL and whatnot. The other grant that went submitted, we will hear from them in the next 30 days, is New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. That was for $7,500, and that is upgrade for music department only. So I worked with your music instructor to do that, and then I did work with Al to do a CTE grant as well. So this depends. Is your grant ready for the district? If someone comes with me for a need, I look for that grant when it comes available. I rate the grant and submit it. If we get it, great. If we don't, we just move on. So
Is the grant for with the Littleton Police Department, is that the same one that they were looking at for the school resource officer, or is it a different version of it? Because I know that one was kind of like, it was here and then it was gone.
yep, nope.
So it's not the same, so it wouldn't, like a school resource officer couldn't be included in that
No,
one?
they were this grant is very specific. The other grant that is in the works is the Homeland Security Grant, which is not a grant, it's an application
Okay.
to do the simulation drill
Yeah.
that the safety teams want to do. So I've done all of our part for the school district. Again, those are partnerships that have to be run through Littleton Police Department.
Okay.
So I've done everything for us. Now I'm waiting for the chief to write his portion, and then we'll upload it. And
Okay.
we have time for that one, so we're not worried. That exercise, we're looking at October. So, and I need to have that grant application submitted 30 days prior to the event. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Internship breakfast, last week, more than 50 community partners recognized our internships and profile. Joe DePalma and Milanes did a presentation, so it was a pretty nice celebration of all their work. The Toastmasters public speaking class, sponsored by All Saints, 5 students completed that program. They gave, they actually brand the Toastmasters session.
It's good that you're here, Austin.
So that's something I'm hoping that more community organizations can help sponsor events like that. Because it's something we don't always find time to offer our students, or have the resources to offer our students. White Mountain Community College did their early college and running start informational session for families. We may have had a dozen families attend. I think that's enough. Memorial Day, our band will be marching and we will be organizing reflectors again. You'll get your invitations for the graduation class night later this week. But all those dates for the end of the year are there for you as well.
Is the parade actually on the Memorial Day?
27th on Monday.
Oh, it's Monday.
On Monday.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, you're next.
Okay, so Drew Gallen, just want to touch on something on the goals, the opportunity to earn industry-recognized credentials. They're having a program offered by the state, precision exams, that we have participated in a number of years. That was free to us in the past. Next year, it will no longer be free. And we've been moving away from that and trying to have our students participate in industry-recognized credentials. But of course, they cost money, and sometimes that money is found in grants like Perkins, and sometimes students pay for that. For example, students who took their LNA exam assessment, they paid over $100 to take that exam and to be licensed. So sometimes it is a cost bearing for students. And some opportunities that have arose, working with Above the Notch, it allows us to provide opportunities in a way that maybe we couldn't during the day. So we've had a series of meetings with Dan Gray from Rotobeck to discuss a partnership through Above the Notch program and the CTC to offer a CNC course at night. It's a definite need in the area. Rotobeck is expanding. I don't know if you know the plant in Gloveton, we'll be looking for a number of employees, plant in town, other industry. partners in town really need employees. So this is an opportunity that students from above the notch can participate. I'm sure some people from industry can participate, and some students at the high school who want to attend an evening class can certainly participate. As always, very difficult to find an instructor, so we reached out to Rotterbeck and asked them to find an instructor for us, and they did. So they're pretty excited about this new partnership. As you recall, they're the ones that Rotterbeck wrote the matching grant for those for that equipment anyways a few years ago. So it's nice to have them up and operating. So we hope to offer that course in the fall.
That would not be a course, curriculum course, that would be paid for by the student course, correct?
It depends on the student. You want to talk about your
So-
students?
So we're gonna hope and try to do this to above the notch. So it'd be like a stipend position, under above the notch at night. The instructor that Rebecca has found for us, he's their trainer, his CNC operated trainer. And so, we're hoping to do it on Monday evenings. I'm really excited about trying something different and doing this. It opens it up. So right now, under above the notch, anyone over the age of 21 pays $125 to attend this course, and that would stay the same. A lot of the companies are going to pay for their employees to take this course because
Yeah.
it's needed. The closest CNC operated course to be taken is in Massachusetts currently. And we did extensive research with Rotterbeck to see if we could find something comparable to work with. I'm hoping to offer it as an elective, so not as a core curriculum, but as an elective through my, which we use for our electives is the ELO format for taking this course hands-on. We have the machinery, so we're hoping to move this forward this way. But we have interest. We have a lot of companies, and it will be an intro class to start with a certificate at the end that says that they completed the CNC operator introductory course.
And it's funded through the adult ed grant.
Yes, and it is funded through the adult ed grant.
So we could offer this program and it will be free for students above the notch, Wilton High School students, for those students that are older or from different other districts, could pay. And I think it's something that we could really build upon, because I think initially we'll have a number of students in there with a variety of levels of experience. Maybe in time we could develop, maybe 3 levels of experience with certificates that would be well known in our small world of industry partners. So if someone comes for an interview at Burndy and has a certificate, it's known that they have a certain level of training. And want each of the businesses or industries to be part of this, have kind of their stamp on the certification. Because the goal certainly is for students to receive a high school diploma. That's nice. We want that, but we want them to be employable. And this is an area within our region that they need employees. It's critical for them to operate. So I think it's a win-win.
So what's the cost going to be to the taxpayers? You say there's no cost to taxpayers because it's all by grant?
It's paid for out of the state federal, or the state adult ed grant, and of course, the state funds are generated by taxes, so yes, it's paid by taxes, somebody's taxes from some part of
The
it.
bonus for Littleton taxpayers are we hopefully provide employees for these industries so they remain open and don't move away because they can't find employees. That's huge. They're at a critical stage. They need employees. It's kind of our responsibility to create students and young men and women that have a skill set that could be employed.
Which is a betterment for the town.
But we also have the responsibility of not taxing our seniors out of town, which is happening to a lot of our seniors. The taxes are getting so great, they can't afford to stay in their houses. So that's a responsibility. So again, my question becomes, as long as there's no cost to the taxpayer directly, then we're not going to worry about it.
That's why we're trying to be innovative and do this in a different way than just hire an instructor to teach manufacturing. We're trying to be creative, so we can keep the cost down and it's not a burden on the taxpayer. No question. The next item is bike tech we've talked about, and I just put a bullet in there about the hiring process at some point, either with the board or the personnel committee. So for example, this rollback situation, we went to the plant manager and said, do you have someone for us? He provided a name and a person that we met, actually is a former student here, which is kind of nice, that he highly recommends, that it's his trainer. So in the past, we maybe do a contracted service, talking with the SU is better to have this person on board as an employee, as a temp employee. $1,500 stipend coming from a grant, whatever. How do we do that? Because it's not the same process. So I guess we're looking for guidance on that at some point. How do we work with industry partners to provide some of these offerings? I think. So that's why that's there. Program improvement, professional development, just so you know that the Perkins grant will be approximately, I don't have the exact figures yet, $56,000. That's what we received from the state. And just give you an idea of what kind of costs we're looking for that could come out of Perkins, could come out of the Capital Reserve Fund. You hear all the time why we have so much money there. We really need a new tire alignment machine. And just give you an idea, and these are things that people have talked about, that want me, if there's enough money in the Perkins grant, are really interested in receiving for next year. So just a tire alignment machine, that's a $26,000 cost. It's very, very expensive. That's why the Perkins grant is important, as well as the Capital Reserve Fund. We do some welding. Even though we can't offer welding as a CTE program, we do welding in our auto area. That could be a lot safer, I think, with welding booths and ventilation. That's approximately $10,000. We do have to do some SIMMAN updates, $4,000 to $5,000. And a lot of this I'll probably write in the Perkins grant.
What are the updates for the SIMMAN?
You just have technology updates. Yeah, it has to constantly be updated, not any physical updates. So
Software.
it's all his department.
Constantly.
And just I put on here also the capital reserve purchases I talked about at the last meeting, but I don't know if the board officially voted on those. They come out of capital reserves. So that was a couple of meetings ago. They asked for your support. I think I had your support, but we didn't vote. So that's just a reminder for me, really. Program updates. Our completer ceremony will take place on Tuesday the 28th at 7. Completer is someone who completes 2 years of a program. We have about 60 students, and we have more students involved in their second year, but some of our students take a CTE program as a senior, so they're not a completer. You have to be in a program for 2 years. So it's quite a good commitment. And then I'm just happy to announce that all of our students passed their LMA assessment last Wednesday. So I'm pretty happy about that. So they'll be able to, most of them I think are planning to be out in the field this summer. Working, it was a great summer job.
Did they do the food at the, did you say culinary?
No.
Oh, what'd you say?
LNA.
LNA, the culinary. Okay, but they did though, the culinary
The
school did
culinary
do that.
program from the regional did provide refreshments, is very good.
And they also provided a program
the horticultural design team.
Did the flowers.
Did the flowers?
Yeah, I know.
Very nice.
Sorry, I'll wear my hearing aid next week. Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, Al, do you ever collect data from graduates to find out kind of, as they went through the CTC and took different things, whether or not they stuck to that career, whether or not, you know, what, if they're still using those skills in the career now as an adult, whether they went and got a college degree or they went to a tech school afterwards? Do you ever collect any of that to see kind of how?
We are able to, collect data certainly when they leave. Collecting data a couple years out is very difficult.
And if you ever did anything like that through the Alumni Association, just to kind of reach out and see?
That's basically how we do it, or
Okay.
Facebook or something, social media, something like that, or.
I'd just be really curious to see like what percentage of your LNA graduates stay in healthcare, or whether it's in nursing or not, and then how many of those actually get an RN degree, and how many, it would just really be interesting to see that for your automotive students, how many of them go into automotive.
We collected last year for the first time their personal email addresses.
Oh, that's
So
great.
hopefully we'll be able to send something out the end of their first year out. Some years.
It would just be really good. I think it's a great way to
Yeah.
also promote the program to students saying, after high school success rate or whatever it may be.
Okay. Dale?
No,
No report, okay. Eric, are you doing
Yep.
Crystal's?
All right, enrollment, down a few students from last month. No changes to the school goals that have been there all year. I'm sure Mel touched on most of the curriculum staff and development. We did our last round of UDL rounds, which is teachers observing teachers through the lens of UDL, and kind of debriefing afterwards on kind of the things that they saw. I'll touch on that some more. We're continuing to move forward with their computer science standards, and we had our last meeting with Whimsy and Bill Church to kind of go over those standards and how to implement them throughout our school day, and how we're going to roll those out here at Lakeway. The Crystal and Jen and Mel have mapped out the PD for the end of the school year, so I'm guessing Mel will probably touch on that some more too. In terms of personnel, the only positions we're looking for are the summer school positions, and that's going to the board tonight, I think Kelly said. End of the school year, so there's a lot of community events happening right now. We started Walking Wednesday again a couple of Wednesdays ago. This will carry through to the end of the year. We had K registration last week. We had a total of 41 students that we know are in attendance, and that's a pretty good number by this point of the year. I think it's higher this year than it was last year. We did notice a high number of students have attended preschool. We've typically been around 50% students who've had preschool now, and we were more like 75, 80%. So that's a good prediction for next year. We just had the Harlem Rockets event here at the high school through Friends of Lakeway. I just want to thank them. It was a great event. I'm sure there's a link there to some pictures. Crystal is still sore.
It was well attended by all the youth in
Yeah,
town.
300 in attendance, so it was a great success, and thank you, FOL, for that. The YMCA track meet was last weekend, and Littleton, as always, well represented themselves there. For the third year in a row, the Massini twins took first place in a tie with each other, which is always great. Hopefully success continues for them. Well, this is, I guess, their last year at Lakeway. We had a spring concert last Tuesday, and a huge thank you to Mr. Stewart. He always does a great job with that performance, and it was another great show. Bike safety presentation last week with Mr. Harkless, and that went well. And then we're also going to have our bike to school day this Wednesday, where the students are going to meet at Remick Park and caravan down to the school from there. To keep going with bikes, we also had the bike rodeo on Saturday, and that was another successful event. So big thank you again to Mr. Harkless and Littleton Police Department, Friends of Lakeway, and Carla does so much for that event and putting everything together, so thank you, Carla. Last week, we did the field trip to Construct the Musical through Friends of Lakeway. Really like to thank them for putting that together for us. It was a really great show. The kids loved it. The whole presentation was great, so great experience for all those students who usually don't get to do those things. On Friday, the 24th, we're having a Memorial Day celebration, so you're invited to that, whether dependent. It'll be at 1 p.m. outside. Our third grade is doing the Going West musical that they do every year on Friday, May 31st. There's 2 performances, one at 9 o'clock and one at 1:30. And there's a link there for all of our field trips. We have them starting this week with our 5th grade going to Boston. And those will happen in the next few weeks for all of the grades. That's that.
I got a question on your curriculum.
Yep,
The computer science meeting,
yes.
you don't have a computer science program at the
So there's
elementary school?
New Hampshire State Curriculum Science, Computer Science Standards. And so we've been given those, and then we need to kind of figure out how those align with the things that we're already doing and things that we need to add. So,
The state is mandating that we are implementing those New Hampshire computer science standards by spring of 2020. So we are working with Whimsy to put that into place.
Okay.
We do have technology standards,
yeah.
but not specific computer science standards.
But you do have those at the 7th and 8th grade level and high school.
Well, the new standards are district, or K-12.
K-12.
And so both buildings need to adopt.
So yes, we have technology standards, K-12, not specific computer science standards, K-12. So that's what's newly mandated and what we need to begin to put in place. And our goal with Whimsy there is to start with the younger kids and then have that trickle-up effect.
Having Whimsy in the community has been a great asset for us and good connection that we've made.
Thank you, Eric. Melanie?
The NEWA testing has begun for math, reading, and language usage at Lakeway. Let's see, grades K1 and 2 and 3 tested last week, and 4, 5, and 6 are testing next week. So over the next few weeks, we'll be looking at that student data and comparing it to national norms, as well as really looking at individual student growth from fall to spring. And we'll be doing that at our grade level weekly meetings. And looking ahead to next year, grade levels are reviewing their curriculum materials and their content area, scope and sequences, and that's kind of an ongoing thing that we're constantly doing in our grade level meetings. As we had just mentioned, the Whimsy thing. So we have a core team of teachers and that attended that last meeting. And they, at that meeting, they drafted a vision for computer science at Lakeway, and as well as action plans for next steps for this spring, summer, and fall. And with, once again, that goal of implementing those new computer science standards, or CS standards, we'll probably be referring to them as spring of 2020. And our Title I and special education team is still looking at our RTI, or response to intervention model, and to look at ways to gather more specific student data to provide more specific interventions. And then these targeted interventions would not only be provided in the special education classroom or the Title I classrooms, but in the regular classrooms as well. And so this will inform next year's service delivery model. And at the high school, last week, state testing took place for 7th and 8th grades, math, reading, and writing. And then 8th grade and 11th grade also had to take the state science assessment. So that was 4 assessments for those 8th graders last week. And as Jen had mentioned earlier, we had a mix of juniors and seniors take AP tests. I think we had more than double the amount of students this year taking that, or possibly even triple, taking AP tests in a much wider variety of tests taken as well. And just a special thank you to Joe Shea, who took on all of the proctoring of those AP tests. So that was a huge help. And our content area teachers are currently implementing the school-wide reassessment procedure, which is allowing students opportunity to reassess summative assessments only, not formative assessments, to demonstrate competency. And let's see, vertical teams are working with their teams, their content level teams, to identify the biggest issues in curriculum instruction and assessment, and are developing strategies for students, for teachers, for administrators to improve in these areas. And then professional development, as Eric had mentioned, our Lakeway UDL team participated in the last round of instructional rounds this year, where they they rounded on the team members' classrooms for like 10 or 15 minutes at a pop, looking for evidence of expert student learning. And we had our UDL implementation specialist with us during this, and then she led us through a debrief session. And the team has decided to focus on student agency for next year. So there was a lot of evidence of teacher-provided strategies and supports to promote the UDL framework, but we really want to see if and how much students are taking advantage of those supports without being prompted by the teacher to do so. So the earlier we can get kids to be motivated in that way, the more expert they will be by the time they get up in high school to be, self-advocating for themselves as learners. And let's see, Crusader content vertical teams are continuing with their competency curriculum and assessment development, and in their monthly after-school meetings, they are determining what their content professional development opportunities look like this summer. And the Crusader leadership team is looking at alternative ways for our vertical teams to have more time to work together next year, but without interrupting instructional time. And then, as Eric had mentioned, we have our 3 professional development days at the end of the year. We have one day, I believe, as a whole district day, and then 2 days will be building-based professional development.
Thanks. Okay, the next item on the agenda is personnel. Do you have anything?
We did meet twice, actually. Yeah.
Do you have something to bring forward in
Yes. Yeah.
I believe our next facilities committee meeting, are we meeting on June 7th? Is that it?
Is that the first Friday?
That's what
It's okay, yep.
Is that the right date? Okay. At 7:30?
Yes.
The 8th is graduation.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, so
that's right.
that was a good one.
Okay. Well, policy.
Yeah.
The first item on the agenda is policy IKF, high school graduation. This is the second read and adoption. You want me to go right down through all of them? Okay. Policy DAF is a new policy. It's the administration of federal grant funds. It's long, 20 pages, whatever. That's for a second read and adoption tonight. And there are other policies that relate to that. So the policy committee has been looking at several of those, and you will have a few on them, of those tonight. We still have 2 or 3 more to satisfy the local portion, which also needs to add the federal portion in. The next one is EHAB, Data governance and security, which is another new policy. Second read and adoption. We are having another policy meeting this week, so we will be addressing some of the related items that go to that as well. Policy DID is inventories. I think that's the first read tonight, it says here. Policy DJ, purchasing, first read tonight. Policy DJE, bidding requirements and purchasing procedures is the first read. And BCB is board member conflict of interest, which is the first read. Those last four policies had to have some federal guidelines applied into them, which we did. So that's why their first read, we'll be bringing them back. We'll be doing policies for the rest of the year. So, do I hear a motion to accept the first three, IKF, DAF, and EHAB as a second read and adoption?
So moved.
Second?
Yeah, second, sorry.
Hopefully you've all read them, there's no errors or corrections. So, all in favor for the first three?
Aye.
Motion carries. The first read on, motion for first read on DID, DJ, DJE, and BCB.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Is everything you guys had a chance to review it?
Yeah, and I got comments about
Oh,
that.
okay, yeah.
Want to read that one?
Did somebody second it?
Second.
All right,
No.
so Ralph has some questions.
Yeah, this purchasing, DJ, the purchasing, to me, the purchasing system in this school is extremely lax.
Extremely what?
Lax. If you look at those manifests, there's stuff in there should never be paid for by the school district. There's stuff in there that need better identification of the purchase orders. They need purchase orders attached to them. But instead of just putting on purchase order ABE-4, it needs to outline why that item is being purchased. And who's authorizing it, what's it for, who's the final approval authority on it. The school needs to really tighten up its purchasing, because there's a number of those bills that you don't even understand what they are, or the money shouldn't be spent by the school. You know, and I got a list of them here again tonight, I've gone over them with Tom, and a lot of it just makes no sense to me at all, why the school buys this stuff. What is the guideline for just people to go down to the village store or Home Depot or Shaw's and just buy whatever they want to buy? There don't seem to be any guidelines. Then does someone go out and buy stuff on their own, they come back and they ask for a purchasing order? The purchasing needs to be tightened up. In my opinion, if you had a purchasing agent here and you paid $60,000 a purchasing agent, you'd save $200,000 a year, because everything would have to go through that purchasing agent, and it would have to be approved according to purchasing policies. This policy doesn't outline any of the activities of purchasing. It just basically says the superintendent is responsible, but if you look at these bills, we're getting really bad information on these bills in the manifest.
We are, I was just gonna say that we are doing, you're right, the policy will outline the process, it just states the policy. This is our policy and how we're going to manage it. We have to complete a procedure, DJR, to outline how things should be done, when they should be done. And you're right, you know, there's things do need to be clarified, and that's something that the policy committee has now to work on with Tom in the next couple of
Okay.
rounds with our meetings. So if you have any suggestions for that, throw them my way,
Okay.
and we'll get to work.
So you're
on it.
talking about it, just, you need to establish a procedure that says if somebody wants to buy something, this is what they need to do, and that's the
Exactly.
board's job to do that.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the
Then
second part of this policy, it's the actual procedure part of the
Then
policy.
I got recommendations and stuff to
Okay.
do with the procedure policy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, you have to keep in mind, Ralph, too, we do these budgets, as you know, a year in advance. So for us to predict the future, some of those things that are purchased were maybe not budgeted. because we can't predict the future. So if you put in limitations that says it has to be itemized in the budget or you can't buy it, then you're gonna run into problems.
Yeah, but there's a lot of this stuff, I mean, buying $300 worth of books as an incentive to third graders to take a test. You gotta have a procedure that says you can't do that, you can't incentivize third graders
I
to take a
approved
test.
I approved that purchase, Ralph. It was trusted by Crystal. It was incentives for the state assessments.
Yeah, and that was in the budget.
Motivational, positive behavior incentives, and so,
They budget for that every year.
yeah. That's-
I think a lot of this concern, and no offense, is lack of understanding, and to throw out how it works, and to throw out figures that they're spending $200,000 or those are figures you don't know. I think your point bringing it up that it needs to be looked at and maybe cleaned up a little bit, because we don't have an agent to do that specifically. We've talked about that, but to throw out those numbers and say that, it's almost like saying they're buying things that they should frivolously, and I take offense to that.
What about animal supplies, $164 for
What about, you
animal
might not
supplies?
know, you know?
Yeah, you do, you got an animal in school. But if that animal's in school, why isn't the person who brought him into school paying for those instead of the budget committee? The taxpayer's paying $164 for bedding for an animal. It makes no sense. The whole purchasing system, to me, from what I've seen in the last few weeks I've been doing bills, is out of whack. I can't even see the purchase orders on the purchase order.
Yeah,
That whole thing needs to be cleaned up. You need to have one person, everything has to go through. You should have a list of all the people that approved it all the way down through. And it should have more than just one approval on it. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
And I bet we could save this school $60,000 a year just by improving the purchasing system. So,
Well, we're definitely looking at it, it's on the radar.
Okay,
Did you have anything with the other policies from
No, no.
DJE or?
I don't want to approve this one here until we have the procedure to go
it's
through.
just the
That's
first
all.
read, it's just the
Yeah.
first read.
Okay.
And it's stating that we do have a policy in how we're managing the purchasing.
But we're not managing it. That's why I'm saying, you got a policy in place that says we're managing it, you're not managing it.
Well, the
It's
policy,
all kinds of, it's screwed out among the whole school district.
well, the policy is what we're doing, the procedure is what, and it may seem like semantics, but there is a difference. We're basically saying our policy is the superintendent is responsible, the business manager is responsible for, its designation is what it is. So the next part of it is the procedural part. How do we do this? How do we make sure that these people are responsible for it?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay, so,
I think it should be part of the policy. I think it should be part
No,
of the
policies
policy.
are governed, we have to,
the thing is, Ralph, is that some of these policies are so long that I've requested more meetings over this month and next month to get ahead of some of these things, because we need to do it. So they aren't all finished. In other words, we have DJ purchasing, but we're also gonna have a DJR, which is the procedure.
All right.
we had a second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Where'd it go, Patty?
I don't know.
I'm kidding. All right, it's just taking a minute to come out. Need a little comic relief. Yep. Yeah, I'm not gonna add a whole lot. It's been a long meeting already. Reallocation of special education funds, we talked about that a little bit. And those were funds, again, that were not spent by the school, reallocated back to schools. So Kelly mentioned that, a little over 40,000. Our federal grant update, we've got estimates for next year. Title I, 317,621 is our estimate for 1920. That's down significantly from the $359,224 that we received this year. The note at the bottom, we will carry over about $27,760. So we'll be okay for our Title I program for the 1920 school year. With the carryover that we've managed to bankroll, we've managed to keep some money in reserve. So that will help it for the next year and shouldn't require any general fund support. Title II-A, 1819, 81,764. Next school year, 82,824. Of that 81,764, we've spent about half of it this year. We're going to carry over about half of this year's Title II into next year. And again, because we've tried to be somewhat frugal with that money, try to keep a year ahead, or at least a year's amount of funding in reserve. So we're going to be able to do that going forward. Title IV, 39,641. We haven't spent any of that out of 1819, and we're getting another 44,199 for next year. And most, if not all, that will go to Bella Knox Community School and some other, all personalized education programs. Could be related to some summer programs and so on, but the vast majority of that will go to our students that we're working really hard to personalize their education. And that's all I have.
So, take a motion to go into non-public.
Make a motion to enter into non-public session under paragraph 2, section 3 of the RSA 91A:3 of the right to know law for number 3 matters if discussed in public would likely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the board. And number 2, hiring of any person as a public employee.
Yep.
Taking with us
Yeah,
Superintendent.
Patty, Tom, and Dave.
And also number 7, which is consideration by a school board of entering into a student or pupil tuition contract authorized by RSA 194 or RSA 185A.
Okay.
Thank you.
Roll call vote.
Greg Cook.
Millie Nelson?
Kim Woodson?
Yeah, with it.